Okay, so it happened. Practicing wheelies, looped the bike, snapped the rear fender on my 2019 Beta 390 RRS. So we're going to take this off and try and do a bit of a repair to it because parts are getting a bit hard to come by. So I'm going to order a rear fender, but it might not come in for a little bit. So first thing you got to do, 8mm here needs to come out. Far side, 8mm here needs to come out. Up top, we're gonna have to take out those two Allen keys here, and then we'll show you underneath after in a little bit, because you're gonna have to undo some stuff from the black fender underneath, and that's my license plate underneath there. Hold on one sec. Okay, so here, I'm not 100% sure exactly what size Allen key this is. All my Allen keys are just kind of in a box, and just grab whichever one fits, not very big. So I'm going to pull both of these out. Those are on there pretty tight, I've never undone them before. I think I bent my subframe a little bit too, so I'm going to have to take a look at that. I'm going to post a video actually about practicing wheelies. Obviously, as you see, it hasn't been going super great, but we're getting better. So I'll post a video in a little bit showing wheelies, slow and fast. Fast ones are a little bit easier than slow ones, that's for sure. Okay, I'm going to take that other Allen key out, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so one thing whenever I'm watching videos that really gets on my nerves is when people don't explain some of the more detailed things. So I just want to show you these here. Okay, so we got 4 of these nuts that have come out of the fender. We got these 2 right here, which are the Allen keys. They have the Allen key head on them. Okay, and those came out of the top of the fender right here. And then we have the other, the longest bolt right here. And you can see they all have a washer on them. The long bolt also does have a washer, but it comes off of the right side of the bike as you sit on it. Down in here, the washer stayed into the plastic. That happens a lot on the Betas. Not a big deal. You can pull it out if you want to, or you can leave it in there. But that's on the right side, so the longer bolt. And then this bolt here, these ones are both 8mm heads. This bolt here came out of the left side, down by the air box here. I run a bit of a sock on top of my air filter. I'm going to show you guys that too, because I think it's a pretty neat little way to get some more time out of your air filter, and it's pretty cheap. It's actually pool filters, but I'll show you that in another video when we're doing maintenance. So underneath the fender, at least on the RRS models, you have this piece, which is the original license plate holder. So if you see it on the on an OEM bike or on an original bike, it's not cut here. This would extend all the way down off the back of the tail, even further than the way I have mine. And basically that's where your plate would be. And so that fits up underneath the rear fender. I know it's dark, but that fits up underneath the rear fender here, and it hides all these wires for all the lights and everything. So that tucks up in there, but you need to get that piece off. And so this piece comes off, and it's held on by 4 of these 8mm self-tapping plastic screws. So you have to take off those, pull this piece off, and then you can see, you'll be able to see all the wires and everything up underneath. And then what we need to do is disconnect the actual fender from the bottom of the bike. Okay, so I got my studio lighting here, so you can see, again, taking off that inner fender piece. So now what we need to do is you'll be able to see right up here in the center, right where my finger is, there's going to be an 8mm here. Now mine is actually ripped through because it's attached to the subframe, so you can see it's broken here. So I'm going to have to get that out, and then hopefully I can pull the white fender completely off. Okay, so as soon as I pop that one 8mm out, which attached right here, as soon as I pop that out, the actual fender with all of the license plate and everything just kind of fell right off the bike here. So that's okay, I'm just going to leave it hang by the wire. And so at the next step now, there's two more, again, 8mm, 1, 2 here, and those two need to come off now before that white fender will let go. Okay, so those two came out pretty easy. Again, for those two that came out here, 8mm self-tapping plastic screws, okay? And so now, we move up here, you can see other than it being connected into some of the side panels there, then it just slides right off. And there's that piece. Put this down here, and you can see I've done a bit of a number on this. So again, this is going to be very temporary. However, I try and fix this right now because I'm not going to be riding with this thing here, but I figure I still got some practicing to do on my wheelie. So if I'm going to continue to bust up fenders here until I learn to cover my rear brake properly, why put a brand new one on? So this piece here is actually I guess the support underneath everything that holds your rear fender, you know, basically provides all and gives all the strength to the rear fender. Mine got bent up pretty good here. Okay, so this is all kind of torqued up. You can see this is part of kind of where all the hand grip piece is, and that isn't supposed to overlap like that, so it's got bent up and kind of pushed back a little bit. And then underneath here, you can see here, this would have been flush normally because there's a another screw mount, and I noticed obviously when I took the spill, it ripped this screw out of this side. So what I'm going to do is get a set of vice grips and just kind of see if I can't bend this back. I'll probably look to get this part because I think all it does is tie in to right here. So I think if you undo this and then you undo the two screws up underneath on both sides, the one that got ripped out and the one on this side, I actually think that bracket, I mean, I know that bracket from just wiggling it around, that's actually really easy to replace, it looks like, and I doubt it's that much money. So likely when I put a new tail on it, rear fender, just to keep things nice and even, I'll replace that as well. So before I keep going here, I just wanted to show you, I just wanted to confirm my suspicion here, but basically I undid this, another 8mm. I love that everything's 8mm, makes it nice and easy. And look at that. That piece will just slide right out. Now it's a little bit bent and I don't want to pull it against the exhaust too hard. But again, that's another feature that I would really like about this bike, because I was worried out on the trail when this happened just a few hours ago. I was really worried that what I was seeing was connected directly to the subframe, and that maybe the subframe had actually been bent. But that looks like kind of a, you know, a genius little way to provide some rigidity to the tail without really, and then if you mess it up, without really messing up the rest of the subframe. So that's great, I'm happy about that. I'm actually decided to pull this out because I think what I'm going to do is take it off the bike to work it a little bit before I put it back in, because it's overlapping right here. It damaged a little bit this white plastic here, nothing significant, I'm not worried about it. But I want to make sure it sits flush and that it actually sits down underneath where it's supposed to here before I put it back on. Okay, so I'm not going to show you how I straightened this out. I did get it pretty straight. Used some vice grips and an adjustable wrench, and needed to twist a little bit. Actually, I had to take a hammer to it as well to get it to sit flush. I am missing a screw up on this side that must have fell out when I looped it. I'm not going to worry about it right now until I get the new pieces. So I bolted this back in, and I thought it was a mistake that it overlapped here, but it actually is cut so that it overlaps a little bit here, as long as it's not kind of touching. It was bent to the point where it was digging into the plastic here, but I think this will work fine. And what that does is it allows you to then mount up underneath there, because if you try and fit this bracket underneath, you're going to block that that other mounting area for the other plastics. So anyway, I got it back on. Now it's over to the fender, because I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do here yet, but I think I'm going to try the stitch method with some zap straps. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I held the plastic as tight as I could to get the pieces back together, and then I just used a black Sharpie and basically marked where I wanted the stitches to be, in general anyway, because you got to go around and drill holes. And I'm going to use little tiny zip ties, the smallest zip ties I have. I may have to use some of the bigger ones because I don't know how many of these small ones I have, but I'm going to use as many of those as I can to try and get this thing all stitched back together. Again, the only reason why I'm doing this is while I wait for another rear fender to come in. But you want to make sure you get this lined up so that when you cinch everything all tight, it comes together and there's no gaps or anything like that. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so that's the finished project for right now. So I didn't use a zip tie on every single mark I made. I ran out. What I did do, based on a recommendation off of another video I found, is at the end of the cracks I just drilled a hole, apparently that will help stop the crack from getting bigger. I don't know, we're gonna see. It actually is pretty flush, so I mean it's a stitch job, and you can tell it's a stitch job, but I'm actually quite happy with how flush it is. I think I'm going to cover it with something. I'll get back to you guys what exactly that will be, and again, it won't be a permanent solution anyway. So now I'm just going to go and snip, make sure these are all nice and tight, and then snip them all off as low as I can possibly get them. Obviously I put the connector side of the zip tie on the underneath, so hopefully that doesn't cause any clearance issue, but these are pretty small zip ties, so I think we'll be okay. Okay, so first step back, stitching all done. I put the rear fender back on, did up both the mounting bolts here, mounting bolt on the right hand side, mounting bolt on the left hand side. What I realized is those two holes that are still in the fender that I won't be filling in are actually mounts up underneath for the black fender that goes in there. So those are two screws that I will not use. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. So I'm in the process of removing those. One there, one over there. I'm missing one of those screws for these mounts anyway. Like I said, that one was missing when I last checked it. So what I'm going to do is just use one of those screws and then worry about replacing it when I get the new white fender. Okay, so a bit of a different way than I assembled it. I think I probably assembled it a little bit more confusing than it needed to be, but the white fender's back on, and then I'm going to work on putting everything else up underneath now. Okay, it's late. I got it back together. I don't think I mean, this is not a, this bike doesn't see a lot of pavement. It only sees pavement to get to the trail. So, I mean, this was bound to happen. I had to re-stick my signal lights back on. So I cut up some 3M GoPro mounts that I had to fit those so that I could get those stuck back onto the fender. But I was able to get everything buttoned back up underneath. So all the wires are hidden. That's a screw now that I'm missing. It's way too long, so I got a spacer. I hope it doesn't hit my rear tire, but I'm gonna try and fix that right away tomorrow, because I'm gonna go into the shop and try and order a fender, I think. But you know what? It gets me back on the road, and I'm happy with that. So again, a little bit of zip tie stutures. Good to go.